recording this webinar to share with others after the fact. So we will send that out to you so you can use that at some point if you'd like. Just a quick background, I sent out some information about what exactly Impact Connects is. What we're saying is it's our new way of connecting our students and our campus to organizations doing great work in the community. Impact Connects is what's called a service learning module of Volunteer WNY, which is a program of the Service Collaborative for Western New York, and you'll hear more about that. What that allows us to do is to attach to that site. Some of you might be familiar with Volunteer WNY, and to filter the 600 plus organizations on Volunteer WNY down to Impact Connects for access with our students. So our students can see what needs they have and connect with and serve with those organizations. We'll get more into that as we go along. Like I said, if there's any questions, use that chat box. If you have questions after the fact, most of you should have my email address at this point. You can reach out to me at any point. I will say, we're willing to also work individually with organizations to get set up. So if that's something you'd be interested in doing, please feel free to reach out to me and we'll work on getting that set up. Very pleased to have Adam Bartozak, who's the director of Volunteer WNY through the Service Collaborative of Western New York. Adam's been working with Volunteer WNY for years now. He brought this to our attention a while back and helped us kind of get moving throughout this process, and has been a great resource for us throughout getting our Impact Connects program set up. So Adam's going to take you through the nuts and bolts here. I'll be watching that chat box. Like I said, if you have questions, type them in there and we'll go from there. So I'm going to kind of send it over to Adam for now.
Great, thank you, Tom. Can everybody hear me? Great. Well, I'd like to welcome everybody to our presentation today, and special thanks to Tom, Lo, and Brittany for inviting me here to present and to share with you a great tool and resource that is utilized to recruit and manage volunteers throughout Western New York. A little bit about Volunteer WNY that works off of Impact Connect. We established Volunteer WNY in about 2011. We're working with only a handful of agencies at the time. Fast forward to about 2019, here we are today. We work with over 600 volunteer agencies, nonprofit, faith-based, and educational entities. And we also offer about 450 to 500 ongoing and one-time volunteer opportunities throughout a calendar year, which is great, especially from where we started. But the whole goal was to essentially allow volunteers to find a place where they can really identify with anything that they might be interested in to give back and serve their communities, as well as a clearinghouse for all volunteer opportunities in the region for nonprofits, so they can utilize a database that centrally locates and houses all these opportunities and the good things that are taking place here in Western New York. So, we're really excited to have a partnership here with Impact and Niagara University, and we're looking forward to obviously the future. But with that being said, you're looking at right here, as you see on the screen, the front page of Impact Connects. This version of volunteer management software simply allows an agency to really address community needs as well as manage and recruit volunteers accordingly in a very effective and safe location. You're able to obviously post all your community needs on the website and then recruit based on age, distance, you name it, it's all right there. So it's a great system to utilize, and we're going to get into it right now. So essentially what you see here is the front page of the website. These two, obviously, hyperlinks are very important. We'll get into that in a little bit, but nonetheless, on the front page, you're going to have some information. These three areas right here are called spotlights. Stay connected with Impact. Obviously, follow us on Facebook. It's a link for social media. In addition to the two spotlights down here are a little bit of information about Impact, what's happening within the community, and essentially what Impact is in the community. Also, what you'll see here on the front page is you'll see recent agencies. A lot of the agencies, actually all the agencies, filter in from Volunteer WNY through Impact. So you're going to see some of the agencies here we have registered. There is a fake and fictitious agency called Turk & Co. That is my dog. I apologize, but nonetheless, I want to utilize it for our presentation here today. So you're going to see some also recent needs on the right side of the front page of the website. These are important. Obviously, with the recent agencies or recent needs, those are entities that have created an agency account with Volunteer WNY and or Impact, as well as created a volunteer opportunity that's going to be highlighted on the front page. So we're going to move on. Regarding how you would register your organization. Now, I know a few of the organizations that have registered already are already connected with Volunteer WNY. You wouldn't have to re-register essentially your organization. All you would have to essentially do is make sure that your information is updated through your portal. Myself or Tom Lowe is always able to help you with that and assist you with that. But nonetheless, how you're going to register your organization, you're going to click on the hyperlink that says click here to register your organization. And you're going to fill out the sign up information within the agency. So essentially, obviously each agency has a name and an email associated with that agency. The email associated with the agency is going to be essentially your username for logging into Impact. You're going to actually place your address in here, your city and your state and your zip code, all the requirements, contact person, contact title within the organization, an agency email. Typically that agency email is essentially the agency email that you have registered up here. So those typically are going to remain the same. The phone number that's required and any extension. It's very important that obviously the zip code as well as the city and the address are in the system because some of the fields that you're able to search volunteer opportunities actually pinpoint distance and how far away the volunteer is from that opportunity. So it's very useful to have those pieces of information in there. Regarding causes, you're going to select what cause fits and aligns with your organization. Hours of operation, what we do and who we are. Again, information that's important for any volunteer to seek out what your organization is doing and how it might be a good fit. And then any social media links that you can actually list is also listed on the agency portal. It's very helpful for volunteers to see that information. They can connect with you digitally through Facebook or Twitter, and then anything else that you want to add in terms of a website that your agency might have. So when you're done with that information and you create a password, you click on request an account. So I'm going to sign in here to the fictitious organization I created. Okay, so once essentially I register my organization, this is what's going to happen. You're going to actually be pathed over to essentially this location, and it's going to be under Edit Agency. So this allows you, nothing's going to be updated essentially. So this is going to allow you to update all the information that you might have put during registration and or additional information that it's going to prompt you to request. So essentially over here, you have basic information, some of the stuff we already actually captured when you registered. Contact information. This is very important. This is a very important piece of Impact, is where if somebody within your organization is the volunteer coordinator or responsible for volunteers, you want this contact information to essentially align with whoever's going to be managing the agency portal. You want to ensure that that information is available, because when agencies when volunteers or students are seeking out information of your organization, if you want to put your contact information for the person that's responsible for volunteers, they don't get the back and forth with sometimes it happens within organizations who might be responsible for volunteers, but at least they'll know who's responsible for the volunteers, where to go, and how to contact that individual. It's really important. A lot of our organizations on Volunteer WNY make sure that this actually information is always up to date, because again, it gets the correct person. If the volunteers have any questions or the students have any questions, they can go to the right person in place. Again, the location and links, you can update that accordingly. It's captured in the registration process, descriptions, and then user groups. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But basically, whenever you register your organization, it's going to prompt you to this area under the Edit tab. What I like to do is I always like to ensure that you're working with these tabs as an agency. You should never really work with these tabs as an agency once you're in the volunteer portal. Simply because that they're not necessary, number one, and then number two, anything that you're doing as a volunteer or agency manager, you're going to be focused on these tabs going right across. So essentially you have the edit tab, which we're discussing right now. Now, something very important that obviously we're here for is how to essentially create a volunteer opportunity. We're going to click the Need tab and under this salmon colored box right here next to the Edit tab. And then the Need tab is essentially the opportunity for you to create or review or edit any volunteer opportunities that you might have created or edited. So essentially what you want to do is click the Need tab, and then you would click here, Add a New Volunteer Opportunity. All it is a basic template and volunteer description, the who, what, where, when, and why of volunteerism. What you want to do, obviously, is you want to have a title of every volunteer opportunity that goes into out into the public and or through a private mechanism through Impact. But obviously, each volunteer opportunity has a title, and then it also has a description. I always emphasize the fact that try to put as much information about the volunteer opportunity as possible. Again, focusing on the who, what, where, when, and why. That allows volunteers to have a better understanding of what they're doing, what kind of meaningful experience it will be, as well as what kind of impact they're actually creating or making it within the community. So I always try to, ensure that agencies load up on information. Overload or a little bit too much information is also a good thing sometimes in this instance. A few simple sentences does work sometimes, but usually I like to have a lot of information, make it comprehensive so the volunteer or student really has a really good understanding of what they're going to be engaging in. Privacy. Now this is very important. Whenever a volunteer opportunity is created through Impact and or volunteer WNY, you're going to have the opportunity to either create a private or public. If it's public, the volunteer opportunity is always going to go up not only on volunteer WNY, but it's also going to be shown on Impact. Whenever it's private, it's only going to be shown on Impact. The reason that obviously this private option exists is because that some of the service learning classes and curriculum is designed to have obviously students from Niagara University engage in that volunteer opportunity and not the general public. So this is very important when you're creating that volunteer opportunity to ensure what kind of audience you really want to recruit volunteers for. If you're solely working with Niagara University and you know that you're going to be working with students and or courses or curriculum or professors, you want to ensure that you always click this private button right here. If you have another event or anything else you want to open up to the public, you wouldn't mind having not only students, but also general public volunteers recruiting for a specific skill set that is obviously outside of the educational or Niagara University realm, you would click public. So you have a few options here. When it typically, obviously when the volunteer opportunity is going to be private, again, I cannot stress it's only going to be for Niagara University students. When you click on public, you're opening up to about 12,000 volunteers that are on the database. So you're going to have a lot of individuals most likely responding to the need that you post. In addition, there are not going to be, if not many, Niagara University students signing up for those opportunities. Regarding initiative, Tom is going to probably do a little work with organizations that are working with Impact directly. Initiative essentially just aligns organizations together to address a specific cause. Say, for instance, the South End Housing Initiative that's taking place here in Niagara Falls. Those organizations that are working together for a common goal. Tom will have a lot of opportunity to do a lot of things on the front end of the website as well as areas within the website. So it groups all the agencies working for that mission or that common goal or that need together. So it'll be very easy for students to get involved, students to really sign up and register and or find more information about the South End Initiative Housing Coalition, as well as getting information on what agencies are involved and how you can address the needs within that initiative through the organizations that are working together. So again, nothing really too important at the moment, but Tom will have a little bit more information on what that's going to look like going forward. Duration. Now this is very important in terms of how you schedule the volunteer opportunity. Is ongoing. This option will allow us to essentially have the volunteer opportunity in the system, and it essentially never goes away. This will be an ongoing volunteer opportunity. There is no end date. It's always going to be in the system. Volunteers can sign up, they can register, and you could have multiple volunteers sign up and register with no expiration date. So you typically don't have to update it, which happens, but we always encourage volunteer agencies to update the volunteer opportunity at least twice a year if it's going to be an ongoing volunteer opportunity. runs until, it's pretty self-explanatory. It runs until this day at this time. So, we're recruiting volunteers for a bed project coming up next week, but we're cutting it off this Friday. So this Friday, February 15th, we're cutting off the volunteer opportunity. It runs until the 15th, this Friday again, and I'll be contacting the volunteers over the weekend to ensure that they're ready to go next week for the bed project that's taking place. Happens on, again, self-explanatory, happens on this day at this time. We're having a beach cleanup this Saturday, February 16th, from 2 to 4 p.m. At Gallagher Beach. Please show up at this date, at this time, and then volunteers would essentially register for that. Multi-date, this can be every Tuesday, Thursday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You have a lot of options available with a multi-date option. If you, again, this limits on recreating the volunteer opportunity multiple times. We're having a project Friday, Saturday, Sunday. This weekend, we want volunteers again from 2 to 4 at the beach cleanup at Gallagher Beach. This can be created through the multi-date. Custom shifts. Custom shifts is, we're having a day-long event, but we're going to have 3 shifts for volunteers to participate in the morning, afternoon, and the evening. This allows you to, really create opportunities for volunteers to engage in a day-long service throughout multiple periods of time throughout the day. Then reoccurring shifts. This is, again, if the project's taking place on multiple dates, this will allow you to essentially recreate those shifts. So you have reoccurring shifts on Monday or Friday, Saturday, Sunday for that beach cleanup that's taking place this weekend. So you have a lot of options available to really create a really nice volunteer opportunity for individuals to get involved in review and see if it's a good fit for them. Regarding the rest of the fields that you have to enter, the hours, pretty self-explanatory again, how many hours you'll be serving. Again, if that Gallagher Beach cleanup is taking place, 2 hours, so it'd be from 2 to 4 p.m. I just put 2, and then hour description, 2 to 4 p.m. Team registration. This is something that also we see a lot of. When you sign up for a volunteer opportunity on the database and on the website, you have the opportunity to essentially sign up as an individual or sign up as a team. When we say team, that means that one person is essentially the team leader, team captain, and they're responsible for registering how many individuals are going to participate in that group or that team. Tom is the captain of the swim team, and Tom is bringing the rest of the team to volunteer this week at the Gallagher Beach cleanup from 2 to 4 p.m. And essentially, he knows that his team's not going to sign up and register in time, so he's going to take the onus and ensure that he signs up, registers as a team, but he's going to say that, it's myself and 5 others that are participating. Or clubs, yeah. So student groups, clubs, teams, you name it. If they're signing up as a large entity, somebody's taking on a leadership role, typically you're going to see a lot of individuals or those teams signing up, one person taking the leadership role, and then essentially entering the amount of slots available. So that individual that's taking on the team leader role in team registration, again, they're just putting their email and their phone number, and they're the primary contact for that volunteer opportunity. And then they're just going to include the amount of individuals that will be joining them, or students or volunteers. So that's essentially their responsibility. The agency manager will receive a notification saying that, Tom Lowe is signed up for the volunteer opportunity taking place this weekend. He has 7 volunteers he's bringing along with him, but Tom will be your point of contact for that. Minimum age and maximum age. Some volunteer opportunities have requirements, liabilities, insurances. We get that. So we put minimum age in there, maximum age, really many times nobody puts the maximum age, but minimum age is typically somewhat required, especially when we work in some of our nonprofits and populations that we serve. For our bed project that we do through the Service Collaborative, we can't have volunteers. They always has to be 18 years of age and above to utilize the machinery and the equipment, because that's the partnership that we have with the organization that we work with for their woodworking shop. Other organizations have, policies where they can allow volunteers 16-year-olds and above, and or 14 or 12. Something that we do highlight on Volunteer WNY is youth and teen volunteer opportunities. Understanding those policies and procedures in place, populations that you're serving. We understand that it's very difficult sometimes for high school students to get involved, or even sometimes college students, depending on their age. So we like to highlight those because a lot of agencies have a policy of 18 years of age and above to serve within their organization and or the populations that they're serving. A couple other items here when you're filling out the volunteer description. Is it family friendly, outdoors, wheelchair accessible? We don't really use attributes too much. You don't have to really worry about that. But address is very important. Obviously, where's the location of the volunteer opportunity taking place? The zip code, skills and abilities. These are some basic items here that just captures and aligns with skills and abilities that volunteers when they sign up and register. So if you create something, the volunteer opportunity for the Gallagher Beach, which we're doing right now, and I put skilled and physical labor, it's going to essentially highlight anybody who might have a skill set or is interested in a social setting. So when volunteers or anybody who registers, they have the opportunity to really select the skills and abilities that they have that they're interested in. They have to select 3. Well, once you select these skills, that automatically sends and generates a notification to them that our organization has created this volunteer opportunity, and it's gonna here's the opportunity to register. So they receive notifications through the system regarding updated and newly created volunteer opportunities, which is pretty cool. Additional recipients. This is very helpful for many of our organizations, including our own. Say, for instance, I am managing the volunteer opportunity at Gallagher Beach this weekend, but I'm not going to actually be there. But I want my colleague, Tom, again, will be my colleague, even though you're participating in the volunteer opportunity, to know who's participating in the volunteer opportunity, who's signed up, any other information that might be passed along when individuals register for the volunteer opportunity. Tom will also receive those notifications. So when I say that, volunteers, when they do register for any opportunity through Impact or Volunteer WNY, what's going to happen is that the agency coordinator, manager in this instance, is going to receive a notification through the system that Sally volunteer has signed up this weekend for that beach cleanup. Here's her contact information. Not only do you receive her contact information and the notification who signed up, but you also have it generated through the back end of the website through your portal. So once this is done, you create the new need and it's all set and ready to go. So I'll go into once that is created, it's going to end up essentially here. All you just need to do is refresh the needs. And here's another fictitious volunteer opportunity. And I'll click on that to show you what everything truly looks like. So again, we have a title, description. I just put test, initiatives, duration. It's happening on the 1st of October. We have a capacity limit of 20 volunteers, 4 hours. I didn't put the, let's see. We'll allow team registration. And so everything's all set, ready to go. It's filled out. I want to update that need. Oh, sorry. First you have to put a maximum age. So Tom, will you be reviewing all volunteer opportunities that enter the system? Okay, so essentially what's going to happen is that whenever a new volunteer opportunity is created, Tom will have access to review all volunteer opportunities created that's entered in the system. Typically, when that comes through Volunteer WNY, if something would be created through Volunteer WNY, I always review every volunteer opportunity, ensure that it's a good fit, it's a meaningful volunteer opportunity, and there's nothing else that might be otherwise. Tom will have the opportunity to review all anything that goes through the system, which is pretty good, and he can come back with any feedback or anything else that he might want you to change or might not align with what they're trying to accomplish with the class or the curriculum and the groups. So down here, something else really important that Tom will have a little bit more information about how they're going to structure their service learning module is that you're going to have the opportunity to essentially add a user group. Now, I'm pretty sure that Tom and Brittany will be working with the agency to ensure that this is something that's probably off your plate, but I want to make you aware. This user group will have, you'll have, once you hit this tab right down here, they'll scroll down and you'll see probably a bunch of different names of user groups that'll be participating. It's most likely probably going to align with different groups, different classes within Niagara University. Essentially, what would happen is you would click on one of those user groups, and that user group now would be aligned with the volunteer opportunity. So essentially, they would already be connected, and they would be responded to that group. So it's a good way to, obviously, if you're, have a service learning class, a group of 15 students, and as the agency up front, you're working with that class, all you would do is identify that class through this user group and then click on Add User Group. Right now, there's a test group, obviously, in the system that is faculty here at Niagara University, and I plan on working with them for this volunteer opportunity. So essentially, I already selected them. They're only going to receive that information. So now everything's tracked. Those volunteers have signed up. They're already obviously pre-registered within the within the volunteer opportunity, and they're all set and ready to go. It's just a way of connection on the back end. So Tom and Brittany will be able to measure the impact and ensure, all the data that's coming through the system is captured accordingly. Now going back up here, we only use needs for the recruitment and management of volunteers. There's a tab here that it can be a little tricky regarding events. We do not use events at all on Volunteer WY besides or only for communication of community events that are happening within the organization. You're having a mobile food market pop up this weekend, and you want the community to know about. If it's not for the recruitment and management and addressing any needs for volunteers, it's not going to be a need. It's always going to be an event. So anything you want the community to know about that you're not recruiting volunteers, you're going to use events. A lot of our agencies utilize events, and they go up on the system so individuals can check out what's taking place in the community. It's a good resource. It's not used often, but it's used. And the same template, basically the same template is designed to create an event. And probably really don't have to go into this, but again, very similar template, and all you do is create the event. Again, Tom will review that event and make sure it aligns with, the mission of impact. What typically happens is that agencies will create a volunteer opportunity under events. You shouldn't do that. So Tom would essentially either advise you to recreate the event through needs, or he would politely do it himself and just transfer everything over. So the next tab over here is stats. So information right here is where you're going to capture the individuals who responded to all the needs that you have placed. So the need that I created, I can look up and see what volunteers essentially have signed up and registered for that. And then I can export that information into an Excel spreadsheet. And what it's going to do is going to bring all the needs up right down here under active need responses. And all those individuals who responded to what need is going to be right here located in your portal. In addition to that, again, you can export all that information. When you export all the information, not only the name of the individual, but their primary contact information is going to be also included as well, which will be very, very useful going forward. So it's a really cool way of keeping track of all the data, all the volunteers that you've recruited and that's participating in your events. And you have a date range here too, so you can, look. We launched Volunteer WY in 2015. So I can go back essentially and take a look at all the volunteers from 2015 up until now, participating in all of our volunteer opportunities. It's centrally located in our database here in Volunteer Impact or Volunteer WY, and we can pull that information and utilize it accordingly for anything we have coming up. Now schedule, it's not really useful. Sometimes it'll just show in a calendar form what kind of volunteer opportunities you have coming up. It'll show it obviously in a calendar form, which can be useful. I typically don't utilize it too much, but nonetheless, it is available for you to utilize. Time tracking, again, this is going to be very useful going forward. This is going to be the confirmation of approving and denying any hours that volunteers participated in. specifically students, obviously. So when that user group actually completes the volunteer opportunity that we had in the system, it's going to generate essentially a tab right here that's going to be located under volunteer hours. And all of it's going to be, it's going to say, student X has completed X amount of hours, what team they were with, how many hours were completed. And then under the status over here, it's going to show pending. And you have the opportunity to click on approve or deny. The system always prompts you. So once that volunteer is completed, 24 hours after the volunteer opportunity has concluded, you'll get a notification through Impact stating that, again, Sully Volunteer has completed your volunteer hours. Please approve or deny what's in the system portal, essentially. So it's going to be located under this section. It's very useful. A lot of our high school students, college students utilize it because as a volunteer, you can actually print up a resume of all the hours you completed, what organizations you worked with, and that sort of thing. And it keeps track for the volunteer. It's good for obviously any participation in government classes that you might be in high school with, and or any service learning curriculum that some of our university and college students utilize, as well as obviously Impact will be very useful. Check-in, this is something that happens on the spot in terms of your checking in volunteers, literally in real time. We haven't utilized this function yet. Some of our agencies do. So you can actually download an app and it actually checks in the volunteers through the system. It can be useful. We don't utilize it too much. However, you do have that option available in real time, as well as the list. So the list will essentially bring in all the roster of volunteers who signed up for this opportunity, and then they essentially would be listed here, and you can just check them in accordingly. And again, checked in users, another real-time piece of the functionality for Renew Impact. That'll be useful for agencies to explore and utilize. We typically, again, do not use that. We still do a basic, sign-in roster and sign our waiver, because that's another sign-in sheet for us. We just use, as the agency, Volunteer WY as a recruitment method to recruit volunteers for our opportunities, and then I'll approve and deny their hours if they're utilizing the system accordingly. But we still have a paper form on file at all of our volunteer opportunities, no matter what. So you're going to recruit volunteers to the system, but in our instance, in our policy for the Service Collaborative, we're always going to have a paper file on at site where the individuals arrive. They ensure that we sign, and then that's available. So. But nonetheless, there's some information here available through the system. The system itself is called Get Connected. I don't want to confuse anybody, but the system also provides a lot of tutorials, a lot of training, documentation, and forms that you can look at to address any questions that you might have. You would essentially click right here to review that. I'll go there now. So all the information essentially is right here. And contacting my site manager would essentially be Tom. Obviously, you know how to get a hold of Tom already, but if you want to go through the system, you can always do that accordingly through this area. And then a bunch of additional resources are here. They even provide additional agency manager trainings, which will walk you through the software and walk you through the portal if you have any questions. But it's a very, very user-friendly system. It's very effective and efficient for recruitment and management of volunteers. We had a system prior to this that we learned that what it could really do if you don't have a system in place that's not user-friendly. And this has really increased our numbers, tripled our numbers essentially per month in the volunteers that are recruited by agencies across Western New York. So it's been a very useful resource for many of our nonprofit partners, and not only the nonprofit partners, but also the agency managers who have a responsibility of managing the volunteers that are participating in any event or volunteer opportunity. So let's see here. We went through posting needs. What it looks like on the system itself. So we're going to go to what the volunteer opportunity looks like on the system. So when you're at the front page of the website and you're seeking out volunteer opportunities, and I'm coming from the user of I'm seeking volunteer opportunities, if you select public, that information is going to be right on the front page of the website. And here's all the information. Any volunteer opportunity created through Volunteer WY and or through Impact that is public will be shared on both entities essentially. And so the information that here we'll click on the Family Promise volunteer opportunity that's happening on March 12th. And they're looking for volunteers to help at the Sabres game for the 50-50 raffle. And here's all the information that they're requesting and putting in the description, additional details, how many slots remaining or spots remaining for the volunteer opportunity, and the skills that are associated. The cool thing about this is that volunteers seek out the volunteer opportunity, but they also seek out the agency as well. So there's two really different ways of seeking the volunteer opportunity, going through the needs or going through the agency side. The needs, obviously, you're going to see what you're seeing here, but also you're going to see the agency on this side. We'll click on that in 1 second, but all right. A couple of things to highlight here is responding as an individual or a team. These are the two different options that individuals have to respond. That's where you're going to see that team leader take the role of being responsible for everybody that they're signing up, or you're just one person, you're just respond as one individual through response right there. But the agency, so I'm seeking volunteer opportunities. I don't know how to get involved or where to get involved or where to start. I'm not going to search the volunteer needs that's in the system. I'm actually going to search based on the agency, what they address. So Family Promise, this is a good example of Family Promise, put in the information, what they do, who they are, what kind of impact they make within the community. And then the cool thing about it is that they'll list and show all the volunteer needs that they have. So there's really a lot of volunteer opportunity for agencies to highlight, not only the agency itself, but the opportunities that exist throughout the whole entire organization. Here's the contact information for Grace. It's right there. You know exactly how to get a hold of her. Again, some agencies put the person who's responsible for volunteers. Some agencies do not like to put that information and making it public. That's your decision. But a lot of our agencies do have that available. Location, like I said, the website, how you get a hold of them on social media. And then you can also add photos too as well. And that's, again, when you edit your agency, you can add all this information right there. But it's just very useful. We find a lot of our volunteers seek out the agency first before going towards the needs, and that's totally fine. It's great. But I always encourage agencies to ensure that edit tab under their volunteer portal is up to date and current, and try to put information there that's relevant and a way for you to recruit and get individuals involved with your organization and mission. All right, so take a step back here. Does anybody have any questions? Sort of going through this rather quickly. Okay. And another thing to note is that when I do log on, or when anybody logs on, no matter what, if you registered your organization as an agency manager and you're responsible for an organization, you essentially are a volunteer as well. And I'll point that out to you real fast here. So when I automatically log in, it's going to take me to the agency, my agency, and this tab is always going to show up. However, if I want to also volunteer, all I would do is click on View My Profile over here. And this brings up all the information, anything that I might be involved with, volunteer opportunities in the system that I signed up or registered for. So essentially this would all be here. This is what it looks like for any volunteer who has a profile through Volunteer WI, the 12,000 individuals here. So I have the opportunity to pull up my volunteer resume, obviously hope that I would have more hours logged and information in here, but I don't. But all this information will be located. So whenever you do sign up, it's something important to note that it does recognize you first and foremost as a volunteer, but you also have agency access that the agency you just created. So you have a responsibility, obviously, with your agency, but it does allow for you to also volunteer and keep that profile in the system, so you don't have to recreate the wheel twice. Another cool thing is I know the roster of agencies that are involved with today's training. There's a few of them already signed up volunteering to BNY. All we would have to do is essentially know that the primary contact or the agency manager is the right person, and that information is up to date. Sometimes there's some transition. We understand that, so we just have to make sure that the right person is in the agency role, manager role, and you'll have access to your profile. Typically what happens, we'll have agencies sign up multiple times, different people within the agencies, not realizing that they have a profile in the system, or their agencies registered in the system. All I would do, or myself or Tom would be able to contact you. We notice that right up front. And then we, we'll ensure that we merge those two organizations or agencies together, and we have the right person in place. This really only takes a few minutes to not only set up, but also to manage. Once you have it going, it's been a great resource and a great tool. It will be very useful, obviously, for not only the recruitment and management of volunteers and students, but also for what Impact's trying to do and to capture that data and linking and connecting these student groups and the students in a very effective manner. Again, it's a very user-friendly system. Do not be alarmed, do not be deterred. We had a lot of challenges prior to the system with the software that we were using, and this has helped greatly. And again, if you have any questions or need advice or assistance, not only am I always available, Tom is available, and then there's also, obviously, you can get through the system itself through Get Connected. They'll be available too as well. But Tom or I would be able to handle any situation with the system itself. And yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Any other questions? Sure.
Okay. If there are any questions, we'll hang out for a little bit. I want to quickly thank Adam for walking us through that, go through the presentation. Adam's been working with the software for a while now, and so he's a great resource for us. And as he said, I'm available, Brittany will be available, and Adam will be available as some technical assistance to us as we get our feet wet with this system still. So if you have any questions, type them into the box. You can always email me. Terry, I do see your question. I'll look into that about using Purple Pass. I would assume as an agency, though you might not want to, but let me think about that one since you're also affiliated with the university. It might make sense to do that. If there are any other questions, feel free to type them in. Thanks, Joe. Okay. Pretty much, I think we're all set with the webinar. But like I said, Adam and I will hang out for a couple extra minutes to answer any of those questions anyone might have. Again, thanks to Adam. Thanks everyone for joining us.